A new kind of challenge is spreading online in 2026, and it has nothing to do with dance moves or trending sounds. People are filming themselves owning almost nothing, and something strange is happening to their focus because of it. This is not really about tidy closets. Stick around, because the real reason this trend works has nothing to do with cleaning. 3 formats are driving this wave. The 100-item challenge, where participants count every possession down to socks and cut the total to 100. The 30-day declutter, removing 1 item a day until a noticeable amount disappears. And the backpack challenge, fitting everything a person genuinely needs into a single bag. All 3 photograph well, but the appeal runs deeper than the visuals. So why does owning less actually change how someone thinks? Every choice during a day, even small ones, draws down a limited pool of mental energy. Deciding what to wear, what to eat, which app to open, all of it uses the same resource the brain needs for harder decisions later. Minimalism reduces the number of small decisions competing for that resource, and that reduction is the real engine behind this trend, not the empty shelves. The 100-item challenge works almost like a stress test. Most participants are shocked by how much they carry that adds no real value, clothes untouched for years, duplicate gadgets, gifts kept out of guilt. Counting everything forces a kind of clarity, because nobody can keep it all, so every item has to earn its place. The 30-day version takes a gentler path, removing 1 thing daily instead of purging everything at once. By day 30, a noticeable amount is gone without the shock of a single overwhelming clear out. And this version tends to pull in people curious about minimalism, but not ready for anything extreme. The backpack challenge is the most visual of the 3, and probably why this trend spreads so fast. Watching someone empty an entire life into 1 bag makes an abstract idea, owning less, feel concrete in seconds. But why does this trend feel different than the decluttering content that came before it? Part of the answer sits in timing. The average person's environment has grown more cluttered on 2 fronts at once: physical and digital. Online shopping made acquiring things faster than at any point in history, while notifications and endless feeds compete for the same limited attention that used to go toward far fewer daily inputs. Minimalist challenges push back against both fronts at once, since most participants report that clearing physical clutter also makes them aware of digital clutter, deleting unused apps and muting unnecessary notifications along the way. There is also a generational element worth naming clearly. Many participants documenting these challenges online grew up with significantly more access to cheap, fast fashion and inexpensive mass-produced goods than previous generations did at the same age, which means they are often confronting a volume of accumulated possessions their own parents never really had to deal with at all. Where an earlier decluttering wave, popular roughly a decade ago, focused mostly on tidying and organizing what people already owned. This version skips organizing entirely and goes straight to reducing the total number of things that need organizing in the first place. Here is where it connects to something bigger than clutter. Psychologists studying attention describe something called cognitive load, the total mental effort working memory handles at any moment. A cluttered room adds to that load even without any conscious attention paid to it, because the brain quietly logs unfinished business in the background regardless. Clear the room and that background hum disappears, freeing up capacity nobody realized was being spent. That links straight back to discipline. Willpower depletes across a day the same way physical energy does. Anything that removes unnecessary demands on it, fewer decisions about clothing, fewer distractions, fewer unfinished projects sitting in the back of the mind, effectively increases the discipline available for what actually matters. Minimalism is not separate from discipline. It is a tool that makes discipline easier to sustain. Some participants push the same logic into their schedules, not just their belongings, saying no to optional obligations, trimming a long list of hobbies down to the 2 that actually matter. Protecting unscheduled time the same way they protect physical space at home. The logic holds steady across every version. Fewer things to manage means more capacity for the things that count. There is one more angle worth understanding fully before trying any of this. Sustained focus depends less on raw discipline than most people assume, and more on how much unfinished business sits quietly in the background of daily life. A single messy drawer will not break anyone's concentration on its own. A home full of unresolved decisions, piled up over months, adds a steady drain that never fully disappears until something changes. Critics point out that some of this content leans harder into aesthetics than function, with perfectly styled empty rooms that look staged for a camera rather than actually lived in. That criticism is fair for parts of the trend, but the principle underneath still holds even without the polished visuals. It is also worth addressing a common misconception about what minimalism actually requires financially. Some critics argue the aesthetic favors people who can afford to replace cheap, mismatched belongings with a smaller number of expensive, well-made items, and that criticism has some truth to it in the more curated corners of this content. But the underlying mechanism, fewer decisions competing for limited mental energy, does not actually require spending money at all. Someone keeping 100 well-chosen but inexpensive items gets the same reduction in daily decision load as someone doing it with designer basics. The aesthetic and the actual cognitive benefit are two separate things, even though online content frequently blurs them together. If focus feels harder to hold onto lately, the problem might not be discipline at all. It might be the sheer volume of things quietly competing for attention every single day. There is a practical starting point worth mentioning for anyone curious but overwhelmed by the idea of counting every possession at once. Most people who stick with one of these challenges long-term did not start with the hardest version. They started with one category, clothes, kitchen items, cables and chargers, or books, and applied the same logic there first before expanding it to the rest of a home. That smaller starting point matters because the biggest reason people abandon a full declutter halfway through is the same reason any large, undefined project stalls. The scope feels too big to finish in one sitting, and momentum dies somewhere in the middle of a closet nobody planned to spend an entire weekend inside. That is the whole shift, hidden behind a trend that looks like it is only about empty shelves. The people who complete these challenges rarely talk about the possessions they gave up once the month ends. They talk about the quiet that showed up in its place, and how much easier everything else got once that quiet had room to stay. Drop a comment with the one drawer or shelf ready for a clear out this week. Subscribe for more breakdowns like this one. And share this with someone drowning in things they never actually use.